And are we live? Are we live? Can you dig it? Alright, we're live. So, alright. Today's date, January 5th, 2019, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we usually take the week's events, strangest stories, weirdest things, and pretty much what is Trump doing with us now that we're always going to be so concerned about. So, before I get started, guys, give me a second here, just getting all my ducks in a row here as far as getting everything live and whatnot and making sure everybody can see. I know my hair is fucked up. Appreciate that. It will get taken care of eventually, so thank you guys for pointing that out, by the way. A lot of people have been pointing that out, which I find very weird. But then again, it's only because, if I have locks, should keep up with them. But anywho, this ain't about me. So hopefully, guys, like I said, first year in, and well, kind of rough. Kind of rough in the same sense. The fact of the matter is that, well, this week's stories that we found so far, let's just be honest, it has been weird. And I mean weird because usually if it's weird, it's surrounded by individuals that, that have weirdness to them. We all know who they are. But the one thing I say about it's weird because you ever meet those people that just literally and figuratively just keep shooting themselves in the foot? I mean, they continually keep shooting themselves in the foot. Like, no matter what, above all else, they're still going to continue to do exactly what they want to do. And they don't have that one person that's going to sit there and be like, I don't think you should do it. So, before we do get into that shindig about that, I do have to say this. This is an adult podcast, which means things of adult nature will be said. As well as, there may be some viewer content that may be hard to see. So definitely viewer discretion advised, and make the necessary adjustment for the next 3 seconds. Hi, Kayla. Hi, TL, for guys watching already. So we've already passed that part. So let's get to the most famous man of the hour, because he said a lot of shit. So let me just start with the greatest hit so far of 2019.
Into the history of the Republican Party. You see the same polls as I do. When they say the wall's immoral, well then you got to do something about the Vatican, because the Vatican has the biggest wall of them all. There's a reason why politicians and wealthy people build walls around their houses and their compounds. President Obama recently built a wall around his compound. Look at all of the countries that have walls, and they work 100%. We need a physical barrier. Everything else is bells and whistles. I know more about drones than anybody. I know about every form of safety that you can have. Again, we want to finish it, we want to complete it, because you can't have a partial wall, because people come through the area that's not built, but the areas that are built, nobody's getting through. You can't get through unless you're a world-class pole vaulter on the Olympic team. I could be the most popular person in Europe. I could run for any office if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I think I would have been a good general, but who knows? And I made calls. I said, you better let that oil, that gasoline flow. And they did. And I put out a social media statement yesterday. I said, do you think it's luck that happened? It's not luck. It's not luck. I called up certain people and I said, let that damn oil and gasoline, you let it flow, the oil. General Mattis thanked me profusely for getting him $700 billion. He couldn't believe it. But what's he done for me? How has he done in Afghanistan? Not too good. Not too good. I'm not happy with what he's done in Afghanistan. As you know, President Obama fired him, and essentially so did I. I just got rid of, I wouldn't say that. They say they retired. They say that Bob Corker retired. They say that Jeff Flake, wonderful guy. I never even met him, and he's hitting me. So Jeff Flake is now selling real estate or whatever he's doing. He'll probably go to work for CNN. That's my prediction. When I became president, I had a meeting at the Pentagon with lots of generals that were like from a movie. Better looking than Tom Cruise and stronger. I just got a great letter from Kim Jong-un, and those few people that I shown this letter to. They've never written letters like that. This letter is a great letter. In fact, I watched last night PBS. I haven't seen it in a while, PBS. And I just noticed, I was in the White House all by myself for 6-7 days. It was very lonely. I felt I should be here just in case people wanted to come and negotiate the border security. What we have done with asylum and all of this, we're trying to be the nicest people on earth, and it's destroying our country. Well, I don't like being taken advantage of.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that, you want to sit there and say, that was a messed up 2018. No, that was his first cabinet meeting. Now, granted, it was his first cabinet meeting, done in parts. But again, if you're sitting there and you're a reporter and you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, okay, 2018 was seriously, Trump, not your year. So you're thinking 2019 because, next year is the elections, if you make it that far. Maybe you'll do something positive. Maybe you'll say something that makes sense. Maybe you'll say something along the lines that'll be very presidential, or maybe he's learned something. Because every Trump supporter is like, well, he's new. You'll give him every excuse in the world. You're worse than R. Kelly fans right now, who, if you've seen the documentary, because that's a whole nother subject, but they will give him every excuse in the world to sit there and be like, well, he's just learning. He's doing this. Okay, 2019, this is what we got. We still have more of the same old, same old. We still have an individual who is basically an idiot. And how is he an idiot? That's not the only things he said so far. There's actually worse things. And it's kind of funny where people are finally starting to see the light. And, of course, I hate doing this, but other stories out there like this one where people have bought into Trump's promises. Exhibit A.
We will never again sacrifice Ohio jobs or jobs from any state to enrich other countries.
He lied to those folks here in Youngstown and said that there will be more jobs coming back into Youngstown.
They're all coming back.
And not only did that not happen, but we got good paying jobs and good paying union jobs leaving Youngstown.
Coming back.
This is corporate greed playing a war on the middle class and the lower class. To stop the offshoring of federal contracting jobs. It seems very simple. I haven't heard one good argument on why they're doing it other than corporate greed. And if you want to go overseas and invest and do something over there, I think that's fine, cool. But why do you have to affect these jobs here?
They're getting these tax breaks. Don't give them the tax breaks, unless they're going to build here.
The more profits being brought in, and the more they want to take away.
A lot of the suppliers that supply our parts, they're also losing their jobs. Restaurants, businesses.
Gas stations, car washes, pharmacies, the doctor's office. Tax dollars come into the community to, repave our roads and infrastructure. All those tax dollars that were supposed to be used to benefit us are now going to be gone. So it's devastating not only to the family of GM, but to the community. It's a domino effect.
Many of the companies who we are providing incentives to invest abroad are precisely those companies who are laying off hundreds of thousands of American workers. Rather having the taxpayers of America providing incentives for these huge corporations to go abroad, maybe we may want to say to them, hey, stay back here in the United States.
Time of the gentleman has
Provide
expired.
jobs for our workers, pay your taxes here.
All right, so pretty much on that level is another situation to where, again, I've now spoken about this on previous podcasts, where the Trump's tax plan, which he put in, actually gave incentives to corporations in the top 1%, which basically left the middle class virtually eviscerated, because now there is honestly no middle class in America anymore. It's pretty much them who are on the, if you're on the what was the line I said? If you're on the $750,000 and up area, you're doing pretty well in life. If you're below that level, you're pretty much the working poverty. The reason being because everything is going up but your paycheck. So, and of course with GM, which again I said on a previous podcast, GM was one of the other automakers that we bailed out. I want to say it was what was it? GM and like 3 other ones. But pretty much they're all apart. Now, I said this on previous podcasts. If GM got bought out or bailed out by the American people, then we own it. That's my thing. We own whatever we bailed out. Like, the one thing I've always said more that we should have pushed for is that once we bailed out the banks, we own the banks. The banks are no longer corporate owned; they are publicly owned. In the same sense, if General Motors and other dealerships, other car makers come to the government asking for bailouts, again, we own them. Because if we didn't, because my thing is, if we bail them out, we own them. And like I said, every individual, every taxpayer, every American taxpayer should have honestly got 3 cars from any GM Motors company at that point. That's like saying, I bailed you out. I should be able to go to the lot and go pick out anything I want, and you just hand me the keys and the title. No problem. But that's how messed up we truly are. It's like, it's no longer, I can't say, yes, there is democracy, but honestly, it's an oligarchy. An oligarchy is basically money. I mean, to break it down to the simplest form, it's simply put that money is running everything. And that who has the most money has the most power, because you can grease the most wheels. Sad but true, but that's the world we live in that we need to change. Aside from that, Trump went around basically making promises every state saying, "Oh, you're not gonna lose jobs. We're gonna bring jobs back." Okay, first and foremost, everybody he ever employs is the same immigrant that he wants to keep from coming over. As long as it's not on his, now it's different if it's his hotel resorts and things of that nature. They're just workers he won't pay. But at the same time, if an individual, like I said, those 4 people, those four folks that were just being interviewed GM, and they're just one of many. They're honestly one of many who jobs are getting laid off. Because, like I said, I believe it was GM, it was Ford, it was Dodge. Almost every automaker out there except Nissan has announced they're going to have layoffs. But some of these people, like GM, turned around and spent $20 million and paid back their executives. You're telling me that you can't pay 15,000 workers, but you can pay a few executives $20 million. And at the same time, their CEO got a golden parachute of, I believe, about $40 million. So again, it tells you off the bat the income wage gap that we're fighting. And the simple fact of the matter is that Trump's tax plan isn't working unless you're rich already, because then it's Christmas for you. But for the rest of us, we're going to wind up paying more, because with most, if you give one side tax breaks, the other side is paying for them. Don't get it twisted. Tax breaks are not free. Somebody's always paying for the gift someone else got. And that's why they always say it's no such thing as a free lunch. But moving right along. Now, honestly, guys, unless you've been under a rock, we're now under day 15. Day 15 of the government shutdown. And people always wonder, it's like, well, what happens during a government shutdown? Well, actually, a lot happens, really. The first one I'm going to get to, I believe, is going to grab everybody's attention. So, for those individuals who are wanting to, like I said, you're waiting to the end of January. You're waiting for your W-2. You're waiting for that big-ass income tax refund that some of y'all may get. Now, if you're like me, and although you might be in a relationship, but you're not married, you should write down single. And when you write down single on an income tax reform, you might as well just set your wallet out, light it on fire, and just watch as it burns. Because that's pretty much how the income tax season treats single people. You basically almost get next to nothing back. And even through all of your auditing, even through all of your tax write-offs, I said the most I've seen anybody ever get back might be as a single person $5,000, and that's the max. Don't let these, Jackson Hewitt and H&R Block, they have to do a lot of write-offs to get to that amount. But when you're single, it sucks. Trust me on that. When you're single, when you have to mark down single on income tax reform, like I said, don't expect a lot. Usually the ones that actually get a lot on the way back are usually very savvy business owners or people with kids. And nothing wrong with people with kids. I've seen people with kids go, if you have children, of course you're going to claim them. They're your dependents. You love them. You want to make sure that you have everything you need for them. And so therefore, if the government gives you money for your dependents, then yes, you should get them for them. So a lot of people do depend on income tax reform. Income tax, sorry. A lot of people do depend on your income check. So with that being said, for all those that are depending on it, I kind of got some bad news for you. So this government shutdown basically means, you're going to be delayed. And don't blame me. I'm just the messenger, because that's the reason why the shutdown at this point is going to be a problem. Because with the government shutdown, the Internal Revenue Service is honestly, for the most part, closed. Only 12% of its staff is working. And honestly, they're working without pay. So you got to think about this for a second. You have the IRS, which is the Income Revenue Service, which we all love to hate because they are always quick. They are always slow to give you money when it's owed, but they are quick to make sure they get it from you when you owe them. Because the government is shut down, because half of the workforce is gone, because 12% is still working without pay, means that at this point, we could be seeing delays well into February, almost into March, as long as the government shutdown happens. So a lot of families who are actually depending on that income tax may not see it for a while. And again, that doesn't hurt anybody but the people that are depending on it, which is us, as the American people. And that alone should be a big ass warning sign. It's like, you would think, because of one individual, that almost more than 275 million Americans are going to suffer for it. And that alone, I'm not just saying as far as the fact of us waiting for our refunds. That alone should have us in the streets ready to fight. That alone should have us in the streets ready to riot. Just because, or protest, or however you feel about saying it. But that alone should have us in the streets just saying, okay, there comes to a point where enough is enough. And this is that, and I was telling somebody, I said, and I was making a joke out of it, where I sat there and said, okay, well, if enough is enough, then we would be in the streets. But let's be honest. Everybody says, well, look at France. Look at what France did. France people went straight to the streets. The police couldn't stop them. The government finally gave them their demands, and they still have all their jobs. You're right. But France's laws actually have people that can protest and not lose their jobs, can have their freedom of speech and not lose their job over it. They have better trained police than we do because, as you can see, none of the officers actually shot any of the protesters. So again, it's easy to sit there and say that another country actually has it better than we do, but at the same time, its laws and where things are going on are a lot better than us. Because let's be honest right now, as much as I would love for us to all be in the streets right now and go against the status quo, you don't think those officers would be ready to shoot you? Now, granted, it's a government shutdown, which means a lot of places are being affected without pay. 911 responders, law enforcement, TSA, which is, I'm going to show a video about that later. All those areas of the government are either shut down or you have people working without pay. And I'll be honest with you, I always believe in the simple fact of the matter is, look, you won't pay me, I ain't working. That's just simple. That's just the way it goes. But these areas, some of them very critical right now, do have some people working without pay. And I have to give it to folks. I can't do it. I can't literally sit there and be like, how in the world could you work? How in the world could you sit there and work without no promise of a paycheck? You're basically working for free. It's almost indentured servant labor, really. And it is interesting to me, like I always tell some folks, like, well, it's a job, I have to keep my job, and it's a government job. But it used to be the fact that people used to always say it's if it's a government job, then you're covered. But I mean, like I said before, the way I point this out is just that when people sit there and talk about shutdowns, you pretty much get stuff kind of like this.
I understand that the National Gallery segments will probably try to hit that tomorrow.
Today's the last day.
You're kidding.
It was kind of smelling bad down there, and I don't know how it's affecting the park with, human waste and everything.
So pretty much, yeah, if, well, in so many words, guys, if you're trying to visit a national park, and you see a certain sign on a trash can, that alone should tell you exactly what you should be worried about. I mean, you have people literally going, so there's kind of a smell back there? Yes, national parks. Some national parks are actually closed, and that's just adding to the list of, like I said, government shutdowns, to where it is amazing to me, TSA, which anybody who's ever been through TSA probably has their own horror story, can sit there and honestly, like I said, you have very few people there. If I literally went up to my airport, Nashville B&A, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a TSA person there, but I guarantee there's not as many as they used to be, because a lot of them have called out sick, which is a separate story, where a lot of TSA people pretty much the same mindset I did, which was like, why am I working without pay? I'm not going to work, so hey, call out sick. Hey, Vaughn, would you say Trump is about to be the first president in recent history to get dragged to the street? Might as well be. Because, like I said, this is all the Trump effect. This is all of his doing. And, as a man who sat there and said, if the government gets shut down, I will own it. Well, let's just see how Agent Orange is doing with that shutdown right now.
You ran your campaign promising supporters that Mexico is going to pay for the wall and the wall is going to be made of concrete. You just said earlier that the wall could be made of steel, and right now our government is shut down over a demand from your administration that the American taxpayer pay for the wall. So how can you say you're not failing on that promise to your supporters?
Very nice question, so beautifully asked, even though I just answered.
You didn't
Look,
answer.
let me just say, excuse me, are you ready? Are you ready? I just told you that we just made a trade deal, and we will take in billions and billions of dollars, far more than the cost of the wall. The wall is peanuts compared to what the value of this trade deal is to the United States. As far as concrete, I said I was going to build a wall. I never said, I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall. Just so you know, because I know you're not into the construction business, you don't understand something. We now have a great steel business that's rebuilt in the United States. Steel is stronger than concrete. If I build this wall or fence or anything the Democrats need to call it, because I'm not into names, I'm into production. I'm into something that works. If I build a steel wall rather than a concrete wall, it will actually be stronger than a concrete. Steel is stronger than concrete, okay? In case you can check it out. Listen, if I build a wall and the wall is made out of steel instead of concrete, I think people will like that. And here's the other good thing. I'll have it done by the United States Steel Corporation, by companies in our country that are now powerful, great companies again. And they become powerful over the last 2 years because of me and because of our trade policies. So if I have a steel wall, or you could call it a steel fence, but it'll be more powerful than any of the concrete walls that we're talking about. It's possible that it will look better. And one of the things, I think you have seen this, that's very important for us, very, very important, in speaking to Border Patrol, ICE, and actually local law enforcement, and even military, they want to be able to see through it. You can't really see through a concrete wall. They want to be able to see who's on the other side of the wall. Because if they're here and you have about a 12-inch concrete wall and you have people on the other side, but you can't see what's over there, it's very dangerous. They want to be able to see through the wall. A see-through wall made out of steel is far stronger than a concrete wall. So I'm very happy with it. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that's what the Democrats prefer. And if it can get them there, I'm okay. It actually will be a more powerful wall, and it will be a more beautiful wall than having a concrete wall.
So, why? The look of the reporter's face, to me, is amazing. Because you look at her, you're going, so why isn't Mexico paying for the wall? Oh, well, I've already answered that question, but let me go ahead and tell you anyway. Okay, so what you need to understand is that steel is stronger, concrete is stronger than steel. That has nothing to do with the fact you didn't answer the question. I mean, that was one of his campaign promises. One of his campaign promises was basically saying, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Yay! Every Trump supporter out there. And so, what's going on with that right now? It's kind of funny. Mexico's still laughing at you. You actually have a GoFundMe, which the last time I was checked was somewhere around 18 million, which is a bit shy of the 5 billion you're needing, that you're asking for. And on top of that, when you're see, the one thing about Agent Orange that he, how can I put this in so many words? The one thing about Agent Orange that he just seems to not like is when his own words are used against him. Where the reporter sat there and said, doing her job, mind you. And of course, he belittled her, which is amazing because, at this point, we almost become desensitized to his belittlement of individuals. But again, he doesn't answer the question because he knows now it was pretty much bullshit that he couldn't turn around and he couldn't really turn around and say, well, there's a reason why I fucked up. He can't say that. The one thing Trump will never admit is failure. Like, for some odd reason, the one thing he will never admit is total and utter failure. And, of course, the fact that his campaign promises were bullshit. But again, when we get back to words again, this is also funny. And I can't make this up, because during this meeting on Friday, which he said a lot of stuff, this one is the one that kind of stuck out to me about him and his choice of words.
According to your article, the president said, and I'm quoting, the president told, not quoting the president, but you're quoting from your article, quote, told lawmakers he didn't like the word shutdown and preferred the word strike. Do you know if anyone interpreted that to make sense? Because the strike is obviously, when people refuse to go to work, have a protest, it's the exact opposite of what's happening here.
Well, right, and which was the only thing we could kind of piece together on that was the context that you were talking about a little earlier about all these federal workers the president is talking about who want him to keep withholding their paychecks until he gets funding for the wall. I mean, that was sort of the only way we could kind of make sense of what that meant. But you did hear him say during the news conference, he didn't use the word strike there, but did say He doesn't like calling it a shutdown. But
right, which is obviously at odds with what he said 3 weeks ago, where he said he would be happy to take that mantle.
And it's interesting that he said that, guys. It's interesting along the lines that he sat there and he says, well, I don't prefer the word shutdown. I prefer the word strike. Okay, no matter how you cut the mustard on it, you caused it. But you don't want to sit there and it's like, again, with his wording, well, shutdown just sounds terrible. Like the shutdown of his Trump Airlines, steaks, vodka, university, pretty much almost every failed business endeavor he's had. I mean, he doesn't even own Trump Hotels. That's owned by somebody else. So, again, a guy who has a business mindset, a failing business mindset, will always find different ways of spending it because he doesn't like the word shutdown. Because shutdown implies negative. A strike is more along the lines of, oh, well, it's not really that bad, but we'll work it out. No, it doesn't work out that way, Trump. You have to admit to what it is. You're failing. Now to get up. Now we'll switch gears for a second here. Now, of course, with the new year, we do have a new Congress. With new Congress in, that means that the House of Representatives has a Democrat majority in it. Nancy Pelosi, as of yesterday, was just announced as Speaker of the House. To some critics, they always kept on saying, well, maybe Pelosi needs to step down. She's too Republican light. A lot of people are saying we need a different voice at the head of it. My thing is, I've said before, Democrats, honestly, get your shit together, because it never ceases to amaze me what I say about Democrats in the same sense I say about Republicans. Republicans are pretty much corporate bought, conservative but hypocritical, conservative but twist the laws to fit the view of some ultra far right, ultra religiously Christian based ideological bullshit. In that same sense of Democrats, it is amazing to me that your campaign is one, but when you finally get in there, all of you now are squabbling amongst yourselves. Say what you want about Republicans, but the one thing is clear, they stick together no matter what. Democrats, this year, you need to kind of take a page of the Republican playbook. Stick together and stick behind one message. Because the problem is that if you have half a side agreeing with this, half a side agreeing with that, the American public's going to look at you and say, you're no different from them. In which I know a lot of people are saying, Republicans, Democrats, two sides of the same coin, both are getting paid. I understand it. Can't argue that. These days it's better to be a politician than a professional player, because politicians get paid more than professional players do sometimes. And they don't get taxes. And a government shutdown, politicians still get paid. They still get their $174,000 plus salary when government workers don't get paid. Fucked up a little bit. But anyway, guys, this is actually when they said Democrats, like I said, took the House, and this was the first thing that Pelosi's came forward and said about a few measures they're passing through the House right now.
H.R. 1 to hold legislation to clean up corruption and restore integrity to government.
This bill includes a number of reforms that will strengthen our accountability for the executive branch officials, including the president. Here is what we are focusing on in our oversight committee: prohibiting executive branch officials from lobbying their own agencies for 2 years after they leave, prohibiting procurement officers from going to work for companies they awarded contracts to for at least 2 years after they leave.
They want to make sure that when people come to Washington to serve, whether it's in the legislative branch or the executive branch or as a member of the judiciary, they behave themselves, they abide by ethics, they have integrity, that they're open and transparent. So H.R. 1 addresses ethical responsibility.
The For the People Act make automatic registration and mandate nationwide, not just in certain states or in certain counties, but nationwide. We must get there, and we will get there as Democrats. Restore voting rights to felons who paid their debt to society. With this bill, is in keeping with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But some of us gave a little blood on the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to give any more blood,
Yes, sir.
but we have our votes. And we must use our votes as a powerful instrument to change things.
So basically, like I said, Democrats have came out swinging, if you will. They did come out swinging. They did, and they actually did introduce a lot of bills are going through. One of them, which I found very, very interesting, was the lobbying, because a lot of politicians, when they actually get out of office, will turn around and pretty much go work for the very same companies that pretty much was trying to get them while they're in office. I do love the idea of the bill saying, once you leave office, whoever you were lobbying, you can't work for certain companies until 2 years have passed. Cool. I'm all for that. That reduces lobbying. If you don't know what lobbying is, okay. You ever want to influence somebody but giving them money to make them do exactly what you want to do? That's lobbying, which is unfortunately happening in Congress because lobbying is not illegal. So of course, money is because of Citizens United. People can still do that kind of stuff. They can still lobby politicians to their way of side, and if it means money, then so be it. It's still considered legal. Now, with that law in place, that makes lobbying less effective, if you will, because once they're out of office, they're pretty much on a 2-year ban from working for any company still trying to influence Congress. A nice step in the right direction. But honestly, I wish they would take the next further step and just outright ban lobbying. Lobbying is illegal because I'll tell you right now, it's either make lobbying illegal or overturn Citizens United. Because you know what, if you're going to donate towards somebody, then yes, that information should be public. It should not be private. But again, it is like I said, I don't fully agree with. I mean, it's a right step, but it doesn't go far enough for me on that. And of course, I do love the fact of, giving ex-felons and ex-cons back the right to vote after they serve their time. That's beautiful. Because, okay, I understand. You do a crime, you did your time, you're trying to get your life back together, but you no longer can vote. Now, I thought to myself, there are very few crimes out there to where you probably don't want an individual voting. But if the crime is not that heinous, and they've done their time, and they're off probation, just trying to get their life back right, those are the individuals that should be allowed to vote. So I do love the fact of that bill being introduced to where, okay, we're going to restore felons' voting rights because they should be heard as well. Completely get that. I'm for that. And of course, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which basically is walking around with the Civil Rights Act, which means that, you can't be intimidated or harassed for your votes and shit of that nature, which Trump and company tried to strip. Tried because it failed miserably. But there's a lot on there. Now, here's the things that a lot of people were saying when they said, well, where's the impeachment measurements? Where all this? And honestly, it's getting there. Because like we said about impeachment, the one thing that we said about impeachment to this point has sat there, and it is still going to be an issue because, yes, the House could move forward with articles of impeachment, but the way impeachment works is that you have to have 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. Unfortunately, the Senate still has a majority that was owned by Republicans, and Republicans are still looking at Trump like the sugar daddy. Why should we give this man up? Because he's giving us everything we want. So, of course, one side is going to vote for it. The other side's going to be against it. And you have a stalemate. But, like I said before, eventually it will. I think an impeachment will happen because I don't think, like I said, we barely got through 2 years of this guy already. And our debt is already $2 trillion more. He has actually reached the debt ceiling higher than almost any other president since the first Bush. Yes, the one time President Orange could sit there and say, I outdid the black guy. But aside from that, guys, like I said, with the bills going forward, like I said about the Democrats, you guys honestly have to get on the right page. It's the whole thing about making sure that it's honestly the whole thing about making sure that, okay, whatever we say, we're going to be behind it. And at the same time, it has to be accurate, and it has to be a clear, concise message is what it needs to be. It can't be one side's arguing versus the other side and nothing gets done. It would just make any sense. Derek, well, yeah, all of them are clowns. I can't say all of them. It's only the ones that right now are front and center. The ones that are front and center right now are the ones that are actually causing the most mess. I mean, it's just like I said about Republicans. Not every Republican politician is a over-religious, under-hyped idiot. There are actually very smart ones out there, but again, you have the ones that are getting the more attention in front of them, and they're the ones that are making the whole group look bad. So I can't say there's no such thing as a dumb Republican. Just the majority of them. I mean, just like there's black Republicans. I still laugh when side note, I will never understand a black Republican because, like I said, the whole idea of the Republican Party is against women and minorities. So I can't understand how a woman is a Republican. I can't understand how a black person is Republican. I can't understand how a Hispanic or anybody else of any other nationality is Republican. They literally are the ones standing against you. And I know, before all you historians, well, the Democratic Party used to be against minorities too. Yes, but the party values have changed. Republican Party values have changed. So I would think that if you align yourself, whatever is the current status quo right now, you agree with it. So again, how the fuck do you agree with being a Republican because they're against you? But I'm pretty sure somebody's going to answer that question. So moving right along, there's a few more stories. Like I said, there's actually two. Because like I said, with this most recent new Congress, we actually have more women in Congress than we have ever had in any time. I think the number was about 95, 96 women who are now representatives. So hey, progress. So again, as we have more women in Congress and more women are in representative office, which, like I said, I dig. And people can sit there and say, well, you sound like a feminist. I said, I'm not a feminist. I said, here's the thing. I'm all for more women being in more positions because, look, guys have been the heads of political offices. Cool. So if more women want to go into politics and want to own these and be in the same offices as men are, I'm not going to have a problem with it. Because like I always said it best, I said if we believe that a man and woman can work equally, then a woman should be allowed to be a politician or allowed to be a senator, allowed to be a Republican. I'm a Republican. Well, I mean, you are allowed to be a Republican. But again, it's one of those things to where where we have to get past the stagnant 1950 view of things and start being more progressive. Hey, Kayla, what'd you say? Cheryl Underwood is a proud Republican, but she does not support President Orange. Yeah, she has said that. It's the whole thing of just, I guess in my mind I can't understand it. I mean, I don't understand how, like I said, it's okay to pick whatever political spectrum you're on. I can't fully understand it because then again, I'm looking at the current motions of what the current party is right now. I mean, just like poor girl, what's that one Republican, Moore, who didn't win her presidential race, and she blamed Trump because Trump wouldn't come up there and rile the party base. So, I mean, I understand there's going to be a lot of people that are Republican. Like I said before, in my mind, I just don't see how you guys are just because they're pretty much against what you are. But like I said before, love the fact that there are more women in office right now because I keep on saying, I keep hoping. Honestly, for me, I hope I can see a woman president before my time on Earth is up. That's just me. But I've noticed that whenever, when we have new things like more women in office, they choose to be, for some odd reason, a lot of people like to scrutinize these women and saying, trying to demean them or things of that nature. Like pretty much this one. Like I said, I love this person, the new representative, who had her feelings about Trump, and she did not let back. This is kind of what she said.
Sworn in Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib under fire this morning for comments that she made calling for President Trump to be impeached. Listen.
And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
All All right, we're back with David Gregory and Jay Lee and Alex Burns. And Jay, she knows that people are holding cameras up like this, taping it, so this wasn't like a hot mic moment. Right. This was a message, and I think that you can hear already that a lot of the freshman class is filled with vim and vigor, as my euphemism for something else. And so, will we see some flame throwing? I mean, is this a style that they're coming to Washington with that they think will be effective?
I mean, probably, and particularly on the impeachment issue, yes, this is not the kind of language that we're used to hearing from sworn-in members on Capitol Hill. However, we do know that the issue of impeachment is one that people around the country think about, and obviously, especially for the critics and people who are not supporters of the president, they do get worked up about this issue, and Democratic members who are running for office or are already in politics, they know that this is an important way to sort of rally the base and is a way to get supporters excited. And I think it's not a mistake that a new member of Congress on the very first day on the job would talk about this issue. I don't know that using that kind of language is necessarily advisable, but yes, expect members of Congress to be talking about impeachment sort of nonstop for the next year.
Honestly, I love every part of that. Honestly, I love every part of exactly what she did. She pretty much sat there and said, for all those who heard the bleep, we're going to go impeach the motherfucker. Instant, oh, I can't believe she said motherfucker. She said motherfucking impeach the president. All the fake outrage. My word. I can't believe she said impeach. We're going to impeach the motherfucker. Cheryl, did you hear her? She said we're going to impeach the motherfucker. Oh, this is unbecoming of a lady. I love this shit, honestly. Come on now. I understand there's a certain tact you have to have in office. My whole thing is, for the simple fact of the matter, she told her truth. But then again, there are a lot of people who are pissed off that she said motherfucker. How dare her? She's a newly elected politician in office. She can't use that language. So calling a woman a bitch, grabbing her by the pussy. I would fuck my daughter. My daughter is hot. Telling Megyn Kelly she's bleeding out of her whatever. Making fun of a special needs journalist. Calling Marco Rubio small. Telling Ted Cruz's wife is ugly. We can keep going down the list of everything Agent Orange has said. And trust me, there's pages. And nobody said anything then. One woman who just got elected into office says we're going to impeach the motherfucker, and everybody loses her mind. Everybody loses their minds. Amazing, really. What are you guys saying? As long as it's not Hillary Clinton, I'm good. Rice 2020. You know what, honestly, not to get sidetracked, I got nothing against Hillary Clinton. I don't. Because if you go by the record, if you go by her record, former First Lady, former Senator, former Secretary of State, literally the most qualified, aside from other handful of women, honestly in my mind, was still qualified to be president. She should have been Madam President. The problem with Hillary Clinton was that during her campaign, she also got hit with a lot of shit. She really did. She did get hit with a lot of shit. Forget the fact that the Russian pretty much assistance, because like I said, you had the FBI of James Comey tearing into her as far as possible things. Conspiracy theories about her emails, conspiracy theories about Benghazi, conspiracy theories about Hillary, because they pretty much try to sit there and say that she was responsible for a lot of overseas deaths, when again, all that was to be found contractually false. But again, if you throw enough smoke into a room, excuse me, if you throw enough smoke into a room, it's bound to choke out people. So, I understand people are going to have differences with Hillary Clinton. Like I said, I found no fault, because the woman got grilled by Congress for over 11 hours. And she didn't break a sweat. This woman has honestly been investigated more times than almost every other. She's honestly been investigated more times than Nixon during the Watergate investigation, and she didn't crack. Trump came and stand 5 minutes in a room with Mueller. So that tells you off the bat who actually has the tact for it and who doesn't. But again, my opinion, everybody else is going to be different. Completely understand that. So it's just one of those things where I just sit there and I just go, it depends on you guys. But I get you, Derek. And Kayla is like, yeah, I've never been politically correct. I would have called him a bitch. Kristen Dillier Kim just got here. How you doing? Thanks for watching how the Frack We Got Here. So guys, as far as that goes, that's just one. So again, I love the fact that she said motherfucker. You know, there's nothing wrong with being tagged. There's actually a fun little study out there where it says people who cuss are actually the most lovable and most intelligent people. So, what a motherfuckers. Anyway, there's also another story out there too of Ocasio-Cortez. If you don't know who Ocasio-Cortez is, she's actually the youngest woman right now to be in Congress, be elected to Congress. And there's a certain video out there that's pretty much trying to shame her.
A 30-second video clip, widely shared on Twitter, showing New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dancing on a rooftop. Shot while she was a student at Boston University, it's part of a several-minute homage to 80s movies like The Breakfast Club. The clip was posted the day before the new Congress was sworn in an apparent bid to embarrass the 29-year-old Bronx-born Latina, the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. The since-deleted anonymous post called the self-described Democratic Socialist a commie and a clueless nitwit, and inspired a backlash from those who saw nothing wrong with a college student having fun. Ocasio-Cortez responded by tweeting a new video of herself dancing into her office. The dancing post was just the latest example of an ongoing effort by critics of Ocasio-Cortez to diminish her.
A socialist, proud socialist, democratic socialist.
She's become a lightning rod for conservatives.
She's proposing that we bring socialism to our country right now in Venezuela. There are people who can't afford shoes.
In November, a columnist for the right-leaning Washington Examiner tweeted this photo of Ocasio-Cortez walking down a hallway in a blazer, apparently seeking to raise doubts about whether she struggles economically. Ocasio-Cortez wasn't shy about fighting back, posting in response, "Dark hates light. That's why you tune it out." She parries attacks from conservatives, including ongoing questions about her working-class roots, by calling out corny Republicans and telling one poster, "You didn't even know who I was 7 months ago. You're not going to birther me now." A reference to the longtime effort, once championed by now President Trump, to paint President Obama as un-American.
We made it here to Washington, D.C. for what I am lovingly calling Congress Camp Day Zero. People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes.
Ocasio-Cortez also supports liberal policies that some, even within her own party, see as pie in the sky, and that have made her a favorite target of Republicans.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's constantly wrong but never in doubt.
And you know what that basically is, folks? That is basically the new wave of slut-shaming for new politicians who are women. Now, I got nothing against that woman. Actually, I love her ideology. I love the fact that the policy she's pushing forward. And to address something, guys, let's point this out. There is nothing wrong with socialism. None. There really isn't. Because you know why? We actually have socialist policies in place already. Like Medicare, Social Security, workers' comp, things of that nature. They're all by definition socialist programs. Nothing wrong with that because a lot of people depend on them. So when people say socialism, they almost say it in this negative term, which they don't understand why they're saying it. Except the fact of the matter is, well, if we say socialism like it's terrible, like it's just a horrible thing, we want you to fear socialism. But again, if you actually look at the base of socialism, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, Bernie Sanders had socialist policies when he said, you know what, we need to have Medicare for all. We need a universal health care. We need a universal single-payer health care system like the rest of the world already does. We also need to have free college tuition. As much as we pay the military that can't account for one dime of where the money goes, you think we can take that very same money and put every other individual who wants to go to college can go to college tuition free and not be knee-deep in student loans. We should be able to have a better food program, better selection, things of that nature. All socialist ideologies. None of it bad. So, again, they were actually getting on her because of dancing. Oh my God, she was dancing in college, but she had her clothes on, and there wasn't a bow involved. Oh, the shame. She should be ashamed of herself. No offense, that was probably the most harmless video I've ever seen in my life. She's dancing. Okay, who doesn't dance? Even the ones who can't dance will still dance. What's the problem with that? On the same side of the matter is just like, I love her response where she's like, oh, I can't believe she was dancing in college like this. And the one thing she does, puts up a video of her dancing right into her office. Beautiful. At the same time, they're trying to make her seem like this idiot, and she's not. She's a very intelligent woman. She actually worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign. So a lot of her ideological views would be with Bernie. Again, I got no problem with that. I love that kind of stuff. This type of fresh perspective honestly gives me hope for the next Congress. It gives me hope to see what they do. It gives me hope to see that shows other women out there. Because I'll be honest with you, this honestly shows just how effective when you have a positive female role model can be for other women. And at the same time, I'm all for more women in Congress. I got nothing against that because, like I said, I always sit there and say it best, and guys hate me for saying this. Women are smarter than us. They are. I'll be honest with you. On the on the spectrum, men are stronger than women. This is true. Women are smarter than us. For a lot of guys out there, please accept that. Because only women can turn around and think in 6 different directions on 12 different subjects and will still hold a conversation with you and you won't even know. So if a woman can multitask, then obviously she's equipped for this. At the same time, they should be respected in the simple fact of the matter of what they want to approach and go after. They should only be encouraged to do so. So bravo to that. And thank you, Kayla, for that simple fact of the matter. You said shame for dancing. Let's pull up the First Lady's nudes. Yeah, the First Lady, she's a respectable woman. Her Be Best campaign is great, which is pretty much crap because she's married to the biggest online bully that there is. And the simple fact of the matter is, yes, the First Lady posed nude and has the nerve to talk about other women. But, the only person actually defending her is Trump's son, which is a little bit weird. But again, it's one of those situations to where I've sat there and said, when it comes down to it, this is pretty much slut shaming that doesn't need to happen. And we need to call folks out on that. Because she's done nothing to observe. She's done nothing to deserve this. She's simply trying to serve the American people the best way she knows how. And again, that to me says a lot. That to me says volumes about where she's trying to go with it. So again, cut the bullshit on that. But also, I'm sorry guys, got a little winded. So pretty much guys, there's also another story I want to go over, kind of a very sad story. But again, the reason I play it is because there's always going to be somebody out there that knows information about this. So let me go ahead and play it so you guys know the story.
A manhunt is currently underway to find a killer who attacked, seemingly at random, a family, driving up next to their car, shooting multiple members of the family, and murdering 7-year-old Jasmine Barnes. The gunman has been described as a bearded white man in his 40s who was wearing a red hooded sweatshirt and driving a red pickup truck at the time of the incident. Police told the Times that they're still establishing a motive and have not ruled out the possibility of a racially motivated hate crime. Important to note that while he is a white man, the family is black. And the mom is still in the hospital, obviously processing all of what happened. She has been interviewed, and I want to play a portion of her interview where she tries to make sense of this random, just a horrific act of violence against her and her family.
I replayed this moment in my head over 1 million times to see, did I cut this man off? Did I make a wrong turn in front of him? Did I stop him from getting out of the Walmart for whatever he was doing? Did I do anything wrong to cause this man to fire shots in my car? And I didn't. I didn't do anything. I didn't make a wrong turn. I didn't get over in his lane. I didn't do none of that. He fired off at us for no reason. None.
Obviously, devastating video, and in interviews that she's given, she talks about shielding one of her daughters with her own body, only finding out afterward that one of her daughters had been shot in the head and killed.
She got shot in the arm, the mom did, and one of the 6-year-olds, there's 4 kids in the car, was injured by broken glass too. It's just absolutely heart-wrenching to look at that. And so this is terrorism. And we don't know why he did it, but it's not related to anything else. It's not involved in anything. Look, it bothers me that I have to think about it, and she has to think about it, and we all have to think about, did she do something wrong? She didn't, right? Obviously it's relevant, because if there was an earlier dispute, that would explain why it happened, right? But there is no earlier dispute. There was no dispute on the highway. There was no dispute before that. They don't know each other. And look, we don't know what's in the guy's head. He was wearing a red sweatshirt, not a red hat, okay? But he fires into this random car's and with kids in it, and he kills them. So was he politically motivated? Was he religiously motivated? Was he ethnically motivated? We have no idea. Or, hey, everybody's got a gun. And, oh, God, it's so much fun to shoot them. Okay, and then, oh, well, like, a 7-year-old died, whatever. I had fun shooting my gun. Was he just mentally unbalanced? I don't know, because everybody in the country's got a gun. So this is what happens when everybody has a gun. And look, you know what we're all thinking. Why did he do it? You know, and only one possible reason pops up, but it could be something else. But right now, the only thing that separates him and her is the race. And so, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something else. But whatever it is, it's what I referred to earlier. Of all people, Chelsea Manning taught me this phrase recently: stochastic terrorism. It's when people are encouraged by leaders to do violent acts. The leader doesn't say, kill this specific person, doesn't say you should target Jasmine Barnes. It just encourages you to hate a certain group of people. And then random, unbalanced people in the country pop up and do the violence on their behalf. And that's called stochastic terrorism. And that's what this one looks like. But they're going to investigate. I hope to God they find the guy. Sean King does wonderful work in this area and has offered a $35,000 reward for whoever can name the individual, and then the police would apprehend him, obviously.
It's actually up to $50,000.
So, just going to go ahead and cut that off there for right now. Pretty much, yeah, it's a story to where that's one of those things to... You honestly feel for the parent. You do. No parent should ever have to, feel what what she's feeling. No parent should have to bury their child, as it always been said. No parent should ever have to bury their child. And this poor woman had to be told that her daughter was killed. And here's what I'm gonna say about this. And Kayla, you kind of beat me to it a little bit when you said the story is going to be that he has a mental problem, slap on the wrist. And of course, you're right there. Big ups to DeAndre Hopkins, because that's another story. DeAndre Hopkins of the Houston Texans actually gave away his playoff check to cover the family's funeral expenses for Jasmine Barnes. So definitely big ups to that dude. But when it comes down to it, it's the simple fact of the matter is, it's like he said. And I'll be bold enough to say it. Usually in these instances, it's always a race-related issue. And it could have been, the simple fact of the matter is, if you heard the description, a white man in his 40s pulls up to a car and shoots inside it and kills a young girl and injures her family, who happens to be black. No matter how you cut the mustard on that, I've always believed in the whole thing of one thing that's always said in the Sherlock Holmes books, where it pretty much says, when you remove the improbable, whatever's left, no matter how plausible, has to be the truth. So, if you take away from the fact of the matter is, why would this man, on a random day in December, decide to pull up to this car full of this car with this black family inside, and decide to shoot at it? It's the whole thing about it is, you can sit there and say, well, this person is mentally unstable. Well, that goes right back into what we've said about, the excuses that are given. Because the excuse that is given is that they always say mentally unstable. Well, this person was mentally unstable. Really? The guy in Las Vegas was mentally unstable as he shot almost 50 people. Dylan Roof was mentally unstable when he shot 9 people in a black church. The guy at the Parkland High School was mentally unstable when he shot multiple kids. The guy at Sandy Hook was mentally unstable when he shot all those kids. The guy the guy in Florida during the Madden tournament, he was mentally unstable when he lost a goddamn match, came back with a gun and shot people. The guy was mentally unstable who was actually at a convention and brought in a gun to basically go after a celebrity that he felt dissed him. Do you understand the level of the excuse? The guy was mentally unstable. But yet, why does mentally unstable people have access to guns? Because I could have sworn President Obama actually when this whole thing of guns came up, wasn't there a measure that was put in to prevent people with a mental history not to have access to guns that President Orange rolled back? So all these people who have mental instabilities or question of mental illnesses have access to guns. But at the same time, you're going to turn around and sit there and say, well, this person that shot Jasmine Barnes has to be mentally unstable. Well, that's a good possibility, but it also could be the possibility that he is pretty much the American homegrown terrorist that we all know and love, because the simple fact of the matter is, they are the terrorists we're not calling terrorists. When a white person shoots up a black person's church, that's a terrorist. When a white person shoots up a Muslim mosque, that's a terrorist. When a white person turns around and shoots up a gay club, that's a terrorist. When a white person shoots inside of a car with a black family inside, that's a terrorist. That is a hate crime. That's what hate crimes are. Hate crimes are when they're racially motivated. You don't get any more racially motivated than you of another race shooting at another race simply because they're another race. So again, it makes no sense to sit there and say, and I understand from the news side of things, you can't always sit there and say without due process. And of course, the police are going to say, well, we're not taking away the fact of a racially motivated hate crime. Of a racially motivated crime. Well, yeah, it is. It is racially motivated to me. Now, again, I'm just going off of, let's take away from the facts. Why when any individual on a December day decide to shoot into the car to shoot another person's car? I mean, until I hear a different explanation, I don't accept mental instability, because this is all Agent Orange. Once Agent Orange undid that mandate, for people with mental instability, domestic violence, things of that nature, were able to get access to guns, then it makes no sense. And you shouldn't be surprised now why your favorite mental instability person has a gun. Because you know why? Because somebody out there believes that their rights are being infringed upon. That alone should tell you a lot. But again, the reason why I wanted to play that video was because, like I said, it's very heartbreaking for that mother not to get answers about why her child had to die. At the same time, I do wish that anybody that's in the Houston area that needs to come forward, because there has to be some justice in this. There's going to get to a point, and I don't want that to happen, but I fear it is going to happen, that eventually it's going to be enough to where one side just can't take anymore, and then they're going to take appropriate measures, which is just going to escalate things. And I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that cooler heads prevail. But right now out there's a mother in Houston who has to wonder why her child had to die because some idiot with a gun decided to shoot into their car. It gets to you. It does. It gets to me. Because like I always said it best, I said it best ever since I've learned the story of Emmett Till, ever since I've learned the story of Trayvon Martin, and Sandra Blanford, we can keep going down the line. Philando Castile, we can keep going down the line. Mike Brown, we can keep going down the line of every individual, whether they died in the hands of law enforcement or senseless killing like in Charlottesville, or in protests, or, you know, just honestly just trying to live. The simple fact of the matter is that a lot of the senseless violence out there is done by terrorists who are white, and they don't want to sit there and say it. And like I said, I hope, because eventually they always sit there and say the best. If something isn't done, every action deserves an equal and opposite reaction. I hope it doesn't get that far, because I've seen that story. I know where that story is going to end. It doesn't end in peace. But again, like I said, if for all those who are watching this, you know, if you're in Houston, like I said, if you know the guy, I mean, we're not telling you to go arrest him, but shoot, tell the police, because justice needs to be served about that. But moving forward, as far as that goes, now I know a lot of you guys have heard me talk about income wage gap, income inequality, and there was one Facebook video that kind of got my attention about the inequality gap. And what I mean by that is, I mean by those who are, as we call them, the top 1%, and then you have the middle class, and you have the lower class, which is basically, you know, as we see our economy. So this person had a very interesting opinion on it, and I just wanted to play this with you guys.
Most people believe that the American dream is withering away and only available to a select few. And they're correct. But there's a hidden cause that few are aware of that renders American capitalism itself a myth. 71% of us believe that the economic system is rigged, and both Donald Trump on the right and Bernie Sanders on the left gained ardent support in the 2016 elections with this claim. America has gone from an open, competitive marketplace to an economy where very few powerful companies dominate key industries that affect our daily lives. 2 corporations control 90% of the beer Americans drink. 4 airlines dominate all air traffic. 5 banks control over half of the nation's banking assets. Google controls over 90% of online searches, and Facebook has more than 70% of all social networking traffic. Competition is dying in the United States, and capitalism without competition is not capitalism. It is happening across most of the economy, from birth to death, from hospitals to funeral services, and in nearly all industries. We have the illusion of choice, but for most critical decisions, we only have 1 or 2 companies. This is called industry concentration. A study by Gustavo Grullon at Rice University revealed that 75% of industries in the U.S. have become more concentrated in the last 20 years. It's everywhere. Kidney dialysis, eyeglasses, hospitals, insurance, meat production, and agriculture. The list of industries with dominant players is endless. Today we find ourselves living in a second Gilded Age. In the 1980s, President Reagan relaxed the merger guidelines, and in each decade since then, we've had a wave of mergers and acquisitions, each consecutively bigger than the last. The major tech firms, Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft, have acquired over 500 firms in the last decade alone. Simultaneously, the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice have failed to bring antitrust cases against companies because they focus on what's known as the Consumer Welfare Standard. As long as companies claim that a merger will reduce prices for consumers, it is allowed. The only problem is that in 95% of cases, prices actually rise following a merger. This is because when competition withers away, companies become price makers and dictate what you pay for their goods or services. Every day, the average American transfers a little of their paycheck to monopolists and oligopolists. If you're wondering why inequality is so high, it is because the wealthy own the toll roads of American life and everyone else must pay to use them. Inequality is a symptom, not the disease. The true disease is industry concentration. This matters to everyone, and the stakes could not be higher. Industry consolidation helps explain why economic growth is anemic despite trillions of dollars of federal debt and money printing, why the number of startups has declined, and why workers are losing out with lower wages. We need vigorous antitrust enforcement to return America to a period where competition created higher economic growth, more jobs, higher wages, and a level playing field for all. Some senators have already begun to act. Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota has introduced a bill called the Consolidation Prevention and Competition Promotion Act to expand antitrust enforcement. This bill also has support from Republicans like Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Senator Elizabeth Warren's Accountable Capitalism Act aims to reform corporate governance by having 40% of board seats elected by workers, among other measures. Republican Senator-elect Josh Hawley of Missouri wants to go after big tech companies and hold them to account. This will be a key issue of the 2020 elections, and we hope our book, The Myth of Capitalism, Monopolies, and the Death of Competition, will help inform, educate, and agitate you into action. It's time to restore competition and promote an economy that works for all. You can learn more at mythofcapitalism.com.
Okay, so I actually went ahead and ordered that book because sad part is that they were talking about Amazon. I actually went on Amazon and ordered that book because my thing is, and to a point, she does have a solidified point on that about how capitalism works. And honestly, capitalism works because there's competition. If there is no competition, it's not really capitalism. It's literally an oligarchy. I never can pronounce that word. It's oligarchy. Okay, it's an O word. But pretty much what it means, and I know I can't pronounce it, I should actually be able to pronounce that word by now, but what that basically means is it is pretty much having control of a market. Kind of like how Comcast has over the South. Comcast has a stronghold in some areas. Let's just use that for example. If your only provider is Comcast, and you might have a little spigot that AT&T goes to, that is an oligarchy, because that means that Comcast controls that area, and that no other provider can get into it without having to go through Comcast first. That's the reason why about the Google high stream internet services, where if it tries to go into areas that a internet provider is already there, they pretty much have to jump through a lot of red tape because that internet provider that's already there sees them as competition. And of course, because they've had a dominant focus on the market so far and they've had their claws in this stuff, they can prevent that from happening. So what the individual is saying is that I do agree with her. It's still, fact of the matter is, there is a question of, in the reason why we have so much inequality is because the simple fact of the matter is just that the actual competitive market for capitalism is dwindling down to where only so many companies will own pretty much the market. Like, it was kind of interesting. Like, okay, take cell phones, for instance. How many providers you know out there right now? Let's see. Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and then that's the four major. We didn't even get to, Simple Talk, Metro, which is now owned by T-Mobile, mind you. So we can't say Metro PCS anymore because Metro PCS just got bought out by T-Mobile. So again, it goes back to the main four. T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T. Four providers four providers carry all of 100% of America's cell phone coverage. So, the reason why there needs to be antitrust laws, I don't know if you guys remember, and if you do, great. Do you guys remember when I believe it was AT&T tried to buy, if I'm right, AT&T tried to buy T-Mobile, and it was going to knock down the providers from 4 to 3, and the antitrust laws kind of prevent that from happening, because the simple fact of the matter is, it's just that if you control the market, you control the prices. So again, a lot of people were always saying, we knock down these providers, or we allow this merger to go through, then that's going to affect prices across the board. I mean, the same sense where, and I know a lot of people are going, well, T-Mobile was able to acquire Metro PCS with no issue. Well, again, in this day and age, those antitrust laws aren't there anymore. So it doesn't really prevent companies like T-Mobile from go ahead and actually picking up a smaller cell phone company like Metro. Oh, I forgot Cricket. So we can actually count Cricket as a national provider now. On another note, I'm surprised Cricket Wireless is still around, because when it first started, I didn't think it was going to stick around that long. But again, 5 providers, because Cricket is considered nationwide as well. But I'm using that example to sit there and say it's just that there is an income equality gap among us all, And that book, The Myth of Capitalism, like I said, it's on Amazon right now because I just went ahead and ordered it. Can't wait for it to show up because I'm always about reading certain subjects about equality, finance, things of that nature, just to be more informed about it. But again, that's a book I'm going to be picking up. Hopefully we'll have soon and be able to go from there on that. But yeah, it's just interesting where I sit there and say, when we talk about inequality, we talk about the wage income gap, we talk about all these things, and a lot of people really don't give it the due diligence of looking into it and saying, you know what, there's a reason. There has to be a reason why we're always, why there always seems to be this divide. And the truth about it is, it's this divide because there's no competition anymore. It's all mergers and acquisitions to where, it almost becomes too big to fail. And that's a kind of scary thing to find out. But again, definitely a book I'm looking forward to. And like I said, if you guys want to look forward to it too, it's Myth of Capitalism on Amazon. Or any other bookstore that you may go to. So you might not be Amazon, you might be Barnes & Noble. You might be Books A Million if that's still around. So like I always said, we're kind of getting near the end of the Frack We Got Here podcast. And like I said, I always try to find positive things to talk about because, like I said, in this world of doom and gloom, we always need some good stories. Good stories to let us know that everything's going to be okay, that everything's going to be all right, that honestly, life is actually going to be good. And I always say best, I always love finding stories that give me hope. So this one I'm going to play first. I kind of love because it might tick some people off, but I thought it was great. First and foremost, let me say this. I love that. For anybody that's wondering, that was, the backlash is basically because a same-sex couple who his husband was in the Navy, and anybody doesn't remember the authentic BJ kiss, the whole thing when the sailor bends down and kisses the woman after disembarkment. This time it was a same-sex couple. I had no issue with it. I'm like, I think it's great. I think it's cool. I think it's progressive. I think it's actually moving forward. If you go down to some comments, it's just people are just like, oh, that's terrible. Two men kissing on public. If anybody was watching New Year's Eve, there was like same-sex couples making out on national television. I didn't see any conservative heads blowing up then. I thought it was cool. Just some fact of the matter is, like I said before, it's the whole thing of honestly moving forward. Let's get beyond the stigma of this repressed homoerotic homosexuality tendencies and just let people live. Because if people live differently from you and it's not affecting your life, then you honestly shouldn't give any thought. Like I said best, I always use this example. If two people who are men get married and it doesn't affect anything in your life, you shouldn't care. Because the fact of the matter is, they're both two adults, they both love each other, so let them be in peace, and you go your way. That's how it should be. So I love the fact that picture got put up there, mainly because, two reasons. It pisses off a lot of people who are so religiously stressed that they can't help but want to freak out because they're uncomfortable with it. And sometimes for a lot of these subjects, they are uncomfortable. But you know how you get comfortable about it? You actually fucking talk about it. You actually fucking get it out of your system. Because let's be honest, and I'm not going to go on, I don't want to go on a rant on this here, but usually the ones that have this issue are the ones who are either repressed themselves or extremely religious. Because trust me, I know a few of them. So it's always interesting, like, well, you know, God don't like gay people. Oh, so you want to go by Old Testament? You don't want to go by Old Testament. And I mean, like I said best, I know people are going to say, well, in the Bible it talks about homosexuality and that homosexuality is a sin. Really? In that same book you're talking about, it was okay to beat your wife, own slaves, couldn't eat fish, shave your beard, can't be with a woman in the same house when she has a menstrual period, and oh yeah, you can't have food from the same field. Yeah. But, you know, you're stuck up on the homosexuality. That's the problem. So again, I'll always sit there and talk about that kind of stuff, because you know why? This is how you make uncomfortable subjects comfortable. You have to come out of that shell and be ready to talk about something that's going to make you uncomfortable. But you know what? Not too many people want to do that, because as my lovely cousin Kayla pointed out, people care because they cannot live in their truth. I couldn't have said it better myself. But also, another story I want to show, because I said it's a feel-good story, because it made me feel good to see that. I could care. In my mind, I'm like, let people live. If you love somebody and you're happy with them and they make you happy, then God bless both of y'all. Go be happy. That's what I always say. Because life is way too short to be caring about what the two people do. Because I kind of treat them the same way like I treat celebrities and Kardashians. You know, Kardashians are famous for doing nothing. But if they find hope or love with somebody, good luck. Maybe you can. But again, it's like almost the same sense where if two women or two men or two anyone from the LGBT community, if they ever find love, by all means, mazel tov and good luck, because everybody deserves love. Everybody deserves happiness. What do you say, Kayla? Let's see how many family members come to my brother's wedding. Okay, we need to have a side conversation. I got questions about that. You got something to tell me, because if that's the case, you know what? We're gonna talk about that. That's a family issue. We ain't gonna talk about that. That's a family matter. We ain't gonna talk about it on the show. But yeah, LBGTQ. Pretty much, thank you, Kayla. Pretty much everybody on, anybody different. You know what? Let's not even say that. Honestly, anybody different from yourself. Because I never want to sit there and say specifically the LGBTQ community. I never want to sit there and say that, because everybody should be everybody who is different or raised differently or born different or skin color is different, regardless of however you see yourself, you are allowed to find love and happiness with whoever gives you the same thing equally as they give you. So let's just say that. But anyway, like I said, we're gonna talk. When you said brother's wedding, I'm like, which brother? Because if it's the one I'm thinking of, I'm definitely there. Ooh, I'm definitely there with bells on. But that's a family thing, guys. So I apologize. So here's the other story I wanted to show, which I thought was very interesting to know, in case you ever wanted to know.
Kidnapper clearly wasn't thinking when he allegedly chased a woman and tried to abduct her in North Carolina. As Mark Barber of WSOC TV tells us, he could not have picked a worse spot.
Police tell us that man followed the woman inside this karate school after he tried to force her into his car out here right around 9 o'clock last night. After that man made it inside this karate school, he ran into one of the instructors. Police tell us that instructor fought the man off, and as you can see, the suspect ended up on a stretcher. Officers say the man also fought with them before he was taken into custody. They say the suspect did not know the woman he tried to force inside his car.
Mark Barber again reporting there. The CNN affiliate reports the suspect was taken to jail after he was released from the hospital.
So again, for that story, which I find very interesting. So a woman, like I said, a woman went to a karate studio because this one guy was trying to force her into her car, and she went to the karate studio looking for help. The idiot goes in the karate studio, tries to force his way in, and I know, and keep in mind I said he walked into a martial arts studio. The perpetrator did. Goes up to the head instructor, forces his way in, 4 tries, and he gets dealt with accordingly. You know, I wish this was a live, I wish honestly that was a live PD or that was like World's Dumbest Criminals video, because I can only imagine if I'm a martial arts student and I'm watching my teacher thoroughly deal with the guy. At that point, I'm be like, you know what? You know, I'm not. If I had any doubts about who was training me in martial arts, that went out the window the moment I saw my teacher go ahead and handle a dude. I'd be like, you know what? Cool, teach. I'm ready. I will sit down and be ready for my lesson at that point. But again, as a fan of martial arts, I'm a big fan of martial arts, especially Tung Sudo and Muay Thai, Jung Keat Do, Wushu. I mean, I can go in the whole list of martial arts that I used to love. I mean, I still love. I don't study as much as I used to. I really want to get back into it because martial arts in itself is a beautiful form. I mean, yes, it's a martial arts. Yes, it teaches more than self-defense. It actually teaches life lessons. It teaches patience. It teaches self-restraint. Because a lot of people get this misconception that martial arts is just out there really just to show you how to fight. And anybody who's ever in martial arts, whoever took martial arts, will be able to tell you off the bat, martial arts is not about fighting. Every instructor will always say the same thing. It's never about fighting. It's about choosing when to fight. And trust me, when I was taking martial arts, my teacher would always sit there and say it best. He said, if you can't see yourself, if you can't physically walk away, or you feel like this guy is just not gonna if you're not gonna be able to talk your way out of it, if you've exhausted every other resource possible to end it in a peaceful manner, then hey, then at that point, engage. But again, I love the fact of just, of course, a woman was saved. You know, could have been way worse if the guy got her in her car. But thankfully, she was able to get away. And can't knock the guy at the martial arts studio for showing the reason why the guy shouldn't test him. So I'm pretty sure when he gets up out of the hospital, it'll be a funny ass story. But the last thing I wanted to show is not a video, but again, when I was talking about, earlier, when I was showing about the 2 men kissing, it is amazing to me, and I know my family member Kayla brought this up, and here's the thing I'm going to say, because I love, regardless of what you decide to be in life, I'll always, especially if you're family, I'm always going to love you because you're family. You gotta love family. It's illegal to kill them, but it's the whole thing of accepting differences. And the thing about accepting differences is a lot of people say about accepting differences, but when rubber hits the road is when your true character shows. And I know for a lot of parents, when they hear a lot of people go, well, my daughter's gay or my son's gay and they're about to be married, and they come and say, hey, mom, dad, I'm about to be married to so-and-so. A lot of parents just choose not to be there. So it's sad because, like every child, when you find someone you want to spend the rest of your life with, you want everybody there. You want everybody there to celebrate and share your day, your moment of happiness, if you will. So this woman, which I just recently found out about, has decided that she's going to be the mom at any gay wedding. Sarah Cunningham is her name, where pretty much her son came out to her and she eventually accepted it. And what I loved about that is that she came away from this point, because she said it herself, she came from a conservative Baptist stance that homosexuality is shameful. And the thing that got my attention was that she sat there and said, I felt like I had to choose between my son and my faith. And of course, like any other mother, she chose her son. And it got to the point to where she learned about a same-sex couple whose parents didn't want to come to the wedding. She decided that she was going to be standing in as a mother at ceremonies. And that caught on. I mean, it went to a few weddings to where now it's almost up to, I think she's been to over 50 weddings now. She's actually an ordained minister, so she can actually perform weddings. Even got celebrity attention from Jamie Lee Curtis, who wanted to take a picture with a woman that was literally right there. And I did not know this woman had a book called How We Sleep at Night, where she talks about the relationship with her son who is gay. And she loves being a stand-in mom. And that, to me, I mean, just to give you a synopsis, because it's a very fun article on MSN if you ever get a chance to read it. So it is on MSN if you do want to take a look at it. But I love the simple fact of the matter is just that if one individual can honestly accept something and then be like, you find it to where this child needs their parents there. And that is beautiful. That is wonderful. I can't knock it because, like I said, I know plenty of people, friends and family alike, who are part of the LGBTQ community. Thank you, Kayla. I had to say it slow to get it all together, so I made sure I didn't miss any letters. So I have friends and family alike. I don't knock them at all. If they ask me to be at their wedding, cool. Am I part of the bride or part of the groom, or I'm just allowed to sit there? Do I have to get a tux? Do I have to get, what do I need to do? Because I want to be a part of that. So I feel like regardless of who's getting married to who, a party is a party, especially if they invite you to be there to celebrate in it. So again, I'm never going to be that guy. And I'm going to tell you off the bat, I'm never going to be that guy who's going to turn people away because of their differences. And this is coming from a person who honestly had a 2-hour discussion with a KKK member. He wanted to talk. And unfortunately, he didn't allow me to record it for the podcast. He did not allow me to record it. I respect his wishes. Because he wanted to sit down, and this guy, I won't keep his name anonymous, but this anonymous individual saw my podcast and said, I want to have a sit-down discussion with you. And we did, in public. We chose a public place. We sat down. He explained his grievances. I explained mine. And I'm not sure whatever happened to that guy. I'm going to be honest with you, that was well over 3 months ago. Not sure whatever happened to that guy. But for that one moment in time, a person who considered themselves a KKK member and myself were having a moderate conversation, and we both left and shook hands. So I'm not saying I changed that man's mind, because last time I checked, not too many of the extreme members of the KKK would sit down with a black guy and discuss moderate views on things. But I like to think that maybe he walked away, maybe questioning some things and maybe changing some things around, and maybe he learned to accept things. But that goes into the whole thing. What I'm saying about is just that we have to be willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. Because you want to know why the rest of the world has us beat? Do you wonder why most commercials that are banned here in the U.S. are freely shown overseas? Trust me, I've been there. I've seen those overseas commercials. They are funny as shit. You wonder why nudity is not a big thing over there? They've accepted it. You wonder why sexuality is not a big thing in most overseas cities? They've accepted it. Do you want to know why, people can openly be themselves without judgment? They've accepted it. Why are we so sorry? And that's why I say America can't call themselves the greatest country in the world, because the problem is a lot of us have not learned to accept it. But again, guys, that's one of those things. Like I said, love that story, loved all the good feel-good stories, and that's pretty much going to do it for us here. And like I said, thank you guys. I mean, we had a lot of people participating. So thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, TJ. Thank you. I'm sorry, TL. My bad. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Derek. I'm trying to catch everybody that said something. So, Kristen. Oh, thank you, Kristen, as well. So pretty much, guys, like I said, for all those guys watching live, like I said, if you're watching this in the playback, Feel free to comment as if I'm here, because trust me, we'll see it, especially you Trump supporters that love to talk to me at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. But some shameless promotion before I go. How the Frack We Got Here usually is every Saturday from 10 o'clock to noon. Also at the same time, later today I do have my other podcast, the Off Limits Podcast, where nothing is off limits. That'll be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. On Saturdays. My other friend, Thomas, who will also be having a podcast as well, Thomas Reed on Facebook, has his podcast called To Be Determined, where it's a podcast about physical training and exercise. He is a man who is on a fitness journey that I believe has a great story to tell, and I think you'll actually enjoy a lot of what he does. He does go over certain routines, nutrition, his own personal testimony. Like I said, to be determined, but the results depend on you, which will actually be 2 p.m. from 3 p.m. on Saturdays. My other friend, Vaughn, Ace Vaughn Wensman on Facebook, who actually had a podcast earlier today. He actually has several podcasts of his own. He also has... we'll start with the one. He has the I Get That Reference VST, which is a 30-minute podcast, just over news and video and things of that nature that you might find interesting. Also an interactive show, just like mine. He also has Rhythmness, or you can reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over certain albums and grades them to a 4-tier system. One of that 4-tier system is you have to watch Rhythmness. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle Beezy, which is basically a 30-minute podcast, interactive show, where he just finds certain videos and clips and things of that nature to where he just, like I said, brings it up because it's random, it's interesting, because random conversations usually spark some certain things. And also my other buddy Trace, who actually has 2 shows of his own. He actually has The Bump Down, which is also a musical podcast, where he goes over what's hot on the charts in the mainstream, on the underground. Pretty much goes over new artists up and coming, and also gives his knowledge of the recording industry. So if you're an up and coming artist, or if you just want to learn more about the way the music business works, Trace does have a very, very long, extensive knowledge of that. And if you want to know more about it, just simply watch his show. He also has a Smoke with Truth, which is also a very in-your-face, blunt, direct kind of podcast. But it honestly is a more refined way of actually having conversations. Like I said, Trace is a very unorthodox brother, but very intelligent brother that I would recommend listening to. What'd you say, Kayla? I need to talk to him. Okay, I don't know who him is. Let's talk about R. Kelly. That's actually going to be on the Off Limits podcast, because so if you watch the Off Limits podcast, Kayla, today from 4 to 6 p.m., we are going to touch on Ooh, that's not the right wording I wanted to use. We are going to talk about R. Kelly. So a little bit. It's not the whole thing I want to talk about, but it is going to be someone I want to talk about. You need to talk to Thomas. Oh yeah, he'll be on at 2 p.m. So you'll definitely be able to talk to him then, Kayla. Aside from that, guys, all of our podcasts are available on the I Get That Reference Facebook. All of our podcasts are on the I Get That Reference Facebook page. So if you're not a part of that page, simply go to Facebook. Look, I Get That Reference. It is a group for all. You can instantly be joined. The only request that we have is that you're a participant, which means that you're liking, you're sharing, you're posting, you're talking, and being social, because you're watching this on Facebook, so you should be social anyway. And aside from that, we also have YouTube pages. So if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up Off Limits Podcast, if you look up The Bump Down, if you look up How I Get That Reference, all of those pages are available on YouTube, and we do update those things on a daily basis, so you can like, share, and subscribe. So if you can't catch me here on the playback, simply go to YouTube and look that up, add yourself as a member, and just like and share and subscribe, and we'll go from there. And like I said, guys, the one thing I do want to say at the end of all my How the Frack We Got Here shows is that this is a show about staying informed. Now, I'm making my mission that every time I do this podcast is to go out there and go beyond what you see on the news. To go out there and go beyond what the stories that are not being talked about, and to go beyond and hopefully leave you with the idea that in order to stay informed means that you're staying on the pulse, which means that you're going out there, you're finding out information just like I'm finding out information, because you never accept anything at face value. You should always be seeking the truth in everything. So hopefully an informed community can lead to an informed society, and an informed society can make better decisions, because an uninformed society is what got us Trump. So again, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Like I said, The Opulence podcast will be up later today, to where we're going to talk about certain subjects, especially R. Kelly, with the R. Kelly documentary out there. So we are going to talk about that later. But again, guys, thank you for watching How the Frack We Got Here. Hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday. Like I always say, best of all these things, stay educated, stay empowered, stay informed. Peace.